And the economic impact due to the coronavirus has resulted in a record 3.3 million Americans signing up for unemployment benefits just last week. So to keep people in their homes during this pandemic, cities and states have responded by placing moratoriums on evictions and utility shutoffs. However, some tenants say that's not enough and have responded by calling for a statewide rent strike. So joining us to answer that question about what to do, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and host of RT America's On Contact, Chris Hedges is here. Chris, so inside this stimulus bill that was passed in the Senate and now just the House, is this is a relief for federal loan mortgage holders? We already know that, but there's no relief, it appears, for renters who actually make up 36% of all American households. 65% of those households are under 35, and the majority of renters are Black and Latino people across the U.S. So what does that say about the priorities of the lawmakers?
Well, we know what the priorities are. The priorities are to bail out large corporations like airlines, and it looks like there's a loophole, so even Trump businesses will get bailed out. Money given at 0% interest, which can be leveraged 10 to 1 to large banks, and a pittance tossed at the rest of the population who, if figures are correct, are about to endure a 30% unemployment. So a rent strike, there may be a de facto rent strike, just in the sense that people won't have any income. Only 1 in 4 people can work from home, and those who especially in the lower working class, who make up the service economy, have been tossed out of work with, they might get a check for $1,000 or something, which will get funneled right back into the credit card company. So I think we're headed into uncharted economic catastrophe, in some ways even worse, perhaps, than the 1930s after the 1929 crash, because 70% of the U.S. economy is based on consumption. We no longer manufacture much of anything other than weapons, which is part of the whole crisis, in that we have this desperate shortage of the kind of vital medical equipment, even in terms of gowns and gloves and masks, that a country of our size and wealth should have stockpiled and produced. So there will be economic pressure, without question, that will force tens of millions of Americans to respond in radical measures. And I think this talk of a rent strike is an indication of the kind of desperation and desperate responses that are going to be inevitable as we roll forward in the weeks and months ahead.
Now, Chris, I mean, let me just put this out there. Do you think Capitol Hill are going to hear the voices of renters as loudly as they would hear the voices of homeowners? We have seen what happened in 2008. That was the housing bubble of homeowners. But there's a whole lot of Americans who are renters. Are their voices going to be heard?
Sure. Their voices will be heard as soon as the landlords don't get the rent. And that will, of course, deliver another jolt, perhaps disastrous jolt to the economy, along with all the other jolts that this virus has engendered. So the response of the renters will be heard. What the response of legislators who are beholden to corporate power will be may, as we saw with this stimulus package that was just passed, may be to bail out people, slumlords like the Kushners, and not actually address the economic freefall that is going to be visited, especially on members of the lower working class or the working poor.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a lot of work to be done there, but it's not going to be taken care of in this current stimulus bill. We have to leave it right there, Chris. Chris Hedges, always appreciate your insight on all of this. Thank you.